What's up guys and welcome back to another Wynand Crypto video. Alright crypto family, buckle up because we're diving deep into the Bitcoin 2025 conference and boy oh boy do I have some eye-opening updates for you. We've got fresh intel from David Sachs talking about crypto policy in America, plus some insights from Bo Hines that will make you scratch your head. But here's the kicker, we're also getting into Robbie Mitchnick from BlackRock and their recommendation to allocate just 1 to 2% in Bitcoin and crypto assets. Plus, I've got some wild updates for you about Thailand and other nations letting tourists spend crypto like it's cash money. Now, with all these heavy hitters pushing Bitcoin as the ultimate financial solution, I had to dig deeper. I literally asked AI to show me concrete examples of banks or financial institutions actually using Bitcoin right now for foreign exchange, stablecoins, or tokenization. The answer? You're not gonna believe what I discovered. Stick around because we're about to expose something huge. Now check out what David Sachs had to say about the administration.
I feel like what we have in Washington right now is just a sea change. It's just a total comprehensive shift from being anti-innovation to being pro-innovation and being, much more future-oriented and getting all the obstacles out of the way and helping the private sector innovate. And it's really just been incredible. It's been really fun to be part of. Like I said, I never anticipated that I'd be part of this administration. I'm just a guy from Silicon Valley who hosted a dinner, and then the next thing you know, I'm helping to drive this agenda in Washington. But I think that it's been really incredible to be part of and see the whole thing take shape.
Yeah, well said.
Awesome.
Thank you, David. It's hard to imagine a president, any other president, being able to do a fraction of this or accomplish that, or any administration. And we're just over 100 days. So it's pretty amazing that we still have a lot of time left.
No, it's incredible. I mean, we're basically 4 months in, so we still have over 3.5 years. So I think just what we can accomplish over the next few years is going to be really incredible. What all of you guys are going to accomplish with Bitcoin is going to be incredible and to the moon, right?
To the moon. Right. Well said.
Listen to this perspective from Washington. There's this massive transformation happening right now. We're witnessing a complete 180 from being anti-innovation to being totally pro-innovation. They're talking about being future-focused, removing roadblocks, and empowering private sector innovation. David Sachs mentioned something interesting. He never expected to be part of this administration. Just a Silicon Valley guy who hosted the dinner, and boom, now he's driving policy in Washington. Pretty wild journey, right? They're bragging about accomplishing all of this in just over 100 days with over 3.5 years left to go. The confidence is through the roof. They're talking about taking Bitcoin to the moon. But here is where things get interesting, and this is where I need you to pay close attention.
Bitcoin is truly the golden standard, and that's why we say Bitcoin is digital gold. We make no bones about that, and I've said repeatedly, as the United States, we want as much of it as we can possibly get. That's why we created the SBR in the way that we've done. We recognized it for being unique. Obviously, it's a commodity, not a security. Has intrinsic stored value. As David likes to say, it has the immaculate conception, right? This is an asset that we should be harnessing on behalf of the American people, and we're working diligently as a working group to figure out those budget-neutral ways in which we can accumulate more. And I always tell journalists that ask me all the time, how much do you want? Again, I'll say repeatedly here today, that's a very silly question. We want as much as we can possibly get, and I'll say it ad nauseum the rest of the time that I'm here. But I think that we showed that we recognized that for being unique in the way that we set up the strategic Bitcoin reserve, we have the digital assets national stockpile, which is different. And in this SBR, we said two things. One, we want to accumulate more, and two, we're not going to sell any Bitcoin that we possibly have in U.S. government, period.
So Bo Hines and David Sachs are the main drivers behind Bitcoin adoption in America. Now, I love that we're pushing crypto adoption forward, don't get me wrong, but notice how everything coming out of their mouths is specifically about Bitcoin. I wish we could shift the conversation from Bitcoin solves all our financial problems to understanding what cryptocurrency technology can actually accomplish and why it matters. The message gets lost when it's all Bitcoin all the time. Catch this. Bitcoin is being called truly the golden standard and digital gold. Notice the shift. They used to say Bitcoin was the technology of the future. Now they're consistently positioning it as a store of value, digital gold. That's the narrative they're pushing to the public now. They want as much Bitcoin as possible for the United States. They've created the strategic Bitcoin reserve in a unique way, recognizing it as a commodity with intrinsic stored value. They're working on budget-neutral methods to accumulate more. When journalists ask how much do you want, the answer is simple: we want as much as we can possibly get. And here's the key part: they're not selling any Bitcoin the US government currently holds. Period.
What has happened since that recommendation? Is that recommendation being followed? What types of investors are looking at it? How do we go from that recommendation to investors actually allocating 1 to 2%?
Yeah, so just I think to set the stage for what model portfolios are and how they work for some in the audience. Basically, the idea is to support financial advisors in their journey to be able to build better portfolios, more optimized portfolios for their end clients. And so model portfolios have become a very powerful tool to help financial advisors do that. At BlackRock, we have a very significant asset base in the model portfolios that we build and then equip our wealth advisor clients with. And one of those portfolios, as you note, in February of this year, so just about 3 months ago now, added Bitcoin as an allocation in the 1 to 2% range. And this was a model portfolio that includes alternatives in it. And so that was, as you note, I think a significant development. That was not a sudden reaction to any one thing. That was a result of multiple years of analysis and research by that team who runs those portfolios. So
now here's what's fascinating. They have both the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve and a digital asset stockpile. But guess what? They have zero budget for the other digital assets. They're actively seeking ways to buy more Bitcoin, but they're not actively looking for ways to support American innovation in other crypto projects. Let that sink in for a moment. If we're talking about the next 100 million people using Bitcoin, let's look at how long transactions actually take to process. I've been trying to speak up about this, and the numbers are absolutely shocking. Ready for this? If 10 million people woke up tomorrow and each did one Bitcoin transaction, buying coffee, lunch, whatever, it would take 16 to 38 days to process all those transactions. 50 million transactions, we're looking at 80 to 192 days. 100 million transactions, brace yourselves, 163 days to a full year to complete. Now, before you say, what about layer 2 solutions? Yes, they help, but they can only do so much. The base layer bottleneck is real. This is exactly why financial institutions aren't looking at Bitcoin as a utility token. They see it purely as a store of value. Here's where it gets really interesting. And you guys, I have a special trick for you, which nobody seems to be using, and I cannot wrap my head around why. Because if you sign up through my link down in the description onto the BTCC exchange, you get a 10% deposit bonus. And now stay with me here. Now here comes the important part. If you have any trading capital on any other exchange and you move it to your newly created BTCC account, you get, on top of your capital you moved, another 10% extra trading capital. As an example, so if you move or deposit 100K to your account, you get 10K for free. I'm not kidding. I really don't understand why nobody's doing this. To me, it really seems like people sometimes are too lazy or just don't like free money. I mean, like, I cannot make that account for you. You will need to do that yourself, alright? So let's jump back into the video. I asked AI directly which financial institutions are actually using Bitcoin for cross-border payments, FX, or tokenization. The answer was absolutely eye-opening. Very few major financial institutions are directly using Bitcoin for these purposes. Instead, the trend is toward blockchain technology, stablecoins, and other platforms. Banks and fintech firms are partnering up and actively working together to improve cross-border payments. But when I pressed for specific bank names actually doing this with Bitcoin, the AI admitted there are no major financial institutions or banks using Bitcoin as a primary rail for cross-border payments or tokenization. BlackRock is warning that quantum computing could threaten Bitcoin security. Keep this in the back of your head. Now check out this market cap discussion and price predictions.
Or that $10,000 was a pipe dream and never going to happen, right? So I think Hal Finney was just like, a decade ahead of his curve in terms of thinking about, that this could actually happen, right? So I think, because if everybody was 100% convinced that it's going there, it would already be there, right? And so there's got to be doubt about the pace of adoption, how much more money is, what the addressable market actually is. We don't fully know. I mean, I think Hal Finney's estimate is reasonable because still today, even though he made it, is because there is a lot of monetary premium where people are trying to protect themselves from inflation is safe by, buying real estate. In some cases, they're not even using it. It's just vacant. But, there's a lot of that in New York and China and different places, right? And that is not a great thing because it makes housing less affordable. And if there was a financial product or a monetary instrument that did that for you, it would make housing more affordable. So it would improve, cost of housing, access to housing, quality of housing that you can afford on a budget. So those will all be good things. And there are other things with monetary premium or where people are trying to protect against inflation, like, the bond market, and some more esoteric things like art, wine, where people use that as a kind of novel way to protect against inflation. And if you add all that stuff up, it's, 200 trillion is possibly a conservative estimate at this point because we've had a lot of inflation between.
When we're talking about Bitcoin's potential, someone mentioned that back in the day, $10,000 Bitcoin seemed like a pipe dream. Hal Finney was apparently decades ahead thinking this could actually happen. The logic is, if everyone was 100% convinced Bitcoin would reach these prices, it would already be there. There has to be doubt about adoption pace and addressable market size. They're talking about monetary premium, people protecting against inflation by buying real estate they don't even use, just leaving it vacant. This happens in New York, China, and other places, making housing less affordable. If there was a financial instrument that provided that inflation protection, it would make housing more affordable and accessible. They're adding up all the monetary premium markets, bonds, art, wine, real estate, and estimating around $200 to $210 trillion total market cap for store of value assets. And they call us crazy for thinking XRP could reach $50 to $100. Meanwhile, they're talking about Bitcoin hitting $1 to $5 million per coin. That's a $100 to $200 trillion market cap. There isn't even enough money in the world for that. You can clearly see they're tokenizing value on the Bitcoin ecosystem like other platforms are doing. Alright, XRP Army, there you have it. A lot of bullish updates and exciting developments happening in the crypto space. The market is primed to explode, and I hope you're positioned to be part of it. But remember, don't get caught up in the Bitcoin distraction. While they're pushing digital gold, the real utility and innovation is happening with projects like XRP that are actually solving real-world problems and building the financial infrastructure of the future. If this opened your eyes to what's really happening behind the scenes, smash the like button, hit subscribe if you haven't already, and drop your thoughts about XRP versus Bitcoin in the comments below. Are you seeing through the distraction, or do you think I'm missing something? Let's discuss. And don't forget to ring that notification bell so you'll never miss when I drop my next update about what's really happening in crypto. Until the next time, Wynand Crypto out.